And thank you for being here. Hey, Duncan, Betty,
Welcome to the
Jillian, it's so
Enthink
good.
Circle. We meet every week, and up today is Sabine Trafimow. It's going to be talking about several concepts from Martin Heidegger. Then some of them are quite controversial, so we're looking forward to it. Go ahead, Sabine.
Thank you. My name is Sabine Trafimow, and today I would like to talk to you about some stuff, to call it colloquially, from Heidegger's book, Mindfulness, Besinnung. And in order to start out, Heidegger is pretty complex. I'm going to lay the groundwork, so bear with me for a little bit here. What he does in Being and Time is he distinguishes between being, sein, and Seiendes. So between sein and Seiendes, between being and that which is, beings, in other words. In mindfulness, he is saying that das Wesen, the essence of that which is, the essence of beings, is what he calls machination, Machenschaft in German. And that what that is really the drive and acting upon the desire for more production, more wealth, more power in particular. And he says this is like a never-ending process because it feeds upon itself. Power wants more power. It never ends. And he also says that it leads, of course, to the subjugation of others. It leads to violence, destruction, and war. So machination as the uncontrollable drive, shall we say, for more power, more wealth. And that is the essence, as he sees it, the essence of that which is. And that includes, human materiality. It includes everything that is. In the meantime, while these machinations, which he is decrying also as technology, technology is taking over and, it rules mankind and it rules art too, where everything gets seen as like a means to an end. The artist producing a work of art for, gain and fame, the writer writing for the same thing, he does not call that true art. True art, in his view, would be a true expression that is freed from all the externals. In the meantime, while these machinations are going on, what is also happening is that being as such is forgotten. And what he does is he also blames metaphysics for this, because metaphysics has defined being as, and I'm, semi-quoting here, the most general concept. And, and it was largely left at that, which in his view prevented real questioning of the meaning of being. He is making that same point in Being and Time. Also, being is forgotten in all of the machinations as such, as I said, but he said being and beings, while they do naturally belong together, they are currently separated from each other. There is like a rejection going on, and it's like a mutual rejection, that sein refuses itself to beings, and and beings have kind of forgotten about being itself, and being here understood as being as a whole, seeing the totality of of the world. rather than just a tiny section of it. So a really important idea in mindfulness is that he is looking at the future. He is looking at what he calls the Entscheidung. A decision is in order. What is it going to be? Is it going to be the focus and uncontrollability of the machinations? Is that how we want to live? Or can we, think about being and get being into the picture again? And he said that is a decision that is not actually made by humans ultimately, but it will come from being itself. And he calls it a stos, which is like a push. There is, I guess, a push from being itself. It's like, hey, humans, I'm here, consider me too, and all the stuff that you're doing. So he is saying it's a decision that's out of human hands, but it's like a nudge, a push, that makes itself felt, that maybe humans then will act upon or not. But Heidegger sees being in a very different way here than he did in Being and Time. He has, in Being and Time, he has also criticized being as a mere presence. It's more than just being present, being present somewhere. However, in Being and Time, Heidegger thought that he could get to the meaning of being via the material world and human actions, by distilling things that are commonalities in everyday living. And in mindfulness, he completely nixes this idea. He said, no, you cannot get to the meaning of being by taking the path through that which is, through Zionist. It will not work. So, he is making a U-turn with all of this. You cannot get to this. Heidegger sees here, among other things, I will get to a few of these. By no means is this exhaustive, and I want you to understand that this is just a beginning. Heidegger sees being as the in-between. Being is the in-between. The in-between between what? The in-between between earth, world, man, and God. And being is, the back and forth between all of them. So let me show you a graphic that I created, and I will talk about this: the four cornerstones: world, earth, man, and God. Being is, he sees being in the middle. But these forces, those four cornerstones, he said, are in competition with each other. There is a strife and also a countering. I'll get into more detail here. There is tension between them. So let me show you this. I don't know how well you can. I don't know, David, can you maybe bring this, into focus, maybe, or highlight or something? Somebody running, somebody who is technically a lot more versed than I am.
Hold it a little higher. Hold a little higher.
Okay. Maybe you can highlight this and, so to make it larger.
It would be great if it could be a full screen.
I wouldn't know how to do that and how to get in and out of. I would probably lose the meeting if I do this. So let me explain. So you have. Can you see this, Duncan? Can you? Okay. So what I have here is, so this is, the title of this is "Owning." in German, Ereignis. So Heidegger sees, being as a center point between the four cornerstones. So there is world and earth, man, and God. These are the four cornerstones. And they all relate to each other. In fact, they need each other. The world is what man has created and does create. So it is your university, your library, your world of ideas, it is what man has created. It is also technology, of course. And on the other side, in strife with each other, with the world, is the earth, which is nature. So you can see man-made and nature, as opposites. And again, reference needed here. This is not my doing, what I'm about to say, but reference needed. I apologize. That the earth is nature, but it also fights back. So, man builds, buildings, factories, all of that. But if it isn't maintained, it falls into decay and nature takes it back. I mean, nature in essence asserts itself again. So it's like a back and forth between them. And he calls it a strife between the two, between nature and what man does, for instance, like with construction. At the bottom, the two bottom corners are man and God. But he says, at the moment, the way he sees it, God is not there. Man is actually awaiting God, but God is, not really there at the moment. And man and, ideally, man and God also get into a dialogue with each other. So that, again, it's that there are tensions. So between all of these four corners, there are tensions. And he says the tensions are actually good. So I'm thinking of this as in a dialogue, Betty, right? Like with Bakhtin, where you're dialoguing in differences, but each of them comes to a better understanding of the other. But what Heidegger says here, it's about the Wesen. In the countering between those four cornerstones, I'm going to call them forces for the moment, not that that's the best of terms, but in the countering and the back and forth between these four corners, each can get to its own, can get in this dialoguing, borrowing again, in this dialoguing, each can find its essence and come, to who they really are. And this is kind of similar, to Bakhtin, right, Betty? So I was thinking of this as a dialogue. Now, in the center of this is an owning. And, so think of these four cornerstones, they're all competing with each other. So let me get to the main event here. I want to talk about the Ereignis. Heidegger says here that Sein, being, is an Ereignis. And this topic, from what I read, apology, the reference I don't have handy right now. Ereignis was translated by Ahmed and Kalari as an owning. However, it is quite a much debated topic what to call this, what Heidegger calls Ereignis. The translation is quite all over the place. There are different translations and a debate over which one is the correct one. For instance, the translation and owning. Okay, that's one of them. There are others like event and appropriation. Now, in my view at the moment is that none of them are extremely wrong, but at the same time, none of them either capture the whole meaning of it. And I am thinking that there has to be something better, that I think David and I would like to collaborate with David or anybody else who would like to be in on this, to come to a point where we say, okay, this is it, between all of these. And I think it's something in between all three of them, because there's evidence for each of these translations. But as I said, none of them captures the whole meaning. Now, Ereignis, let me start with the German. Ereignis means actually in common German usage, but Heidegger usually doesn't, he doesn't use language, the German language, like, the rest of us would. And Ereignis in common German usage is actually an event or a happening, and that is a noun. And sich ereignen means to happen or to occur. Now, I found evidence for this as well, for, the idea of an event or a happening. I went to the German Wikipedia, and one of the characteristics of Ereignis, an event, is it has, and I quote, dynamic change. And as such, it is the opposite of a fixed state, dynamic change. And I think this fits with what Heidegger is trying to do here, as, being is not just a presence, it's not a fixed state, but being is change, flexibility, flux. It cannot be pressed into, really beginning, middle, and end. It has an adaptability and a flexibility and changeability. And I think the word Ereignis captures that aspect of being very well. Another support for Ereignis, the translation, Ereignis as an event, is that being is also, as Heidegger says, the in-between. We are always in between. We are between world, technology, earth, nature, other people, and God. We're always the in-between in the larger sense, but I think in a smaller sense, also we're the in-between. We're between tasks, between spaces, between, there's always this in-between in a changeable situation, because it's like, like the pieces are all movable, and the different constellations and arrangements, of course, change. And they are in flux, and we adapt to them, as the situation arises. You behave one way in one environment, another way in another environment with different people, right? So there is this incredible flexibility, and I think that is also built into, this in between and the Ereignis, both. And I want to give you a quote. Being, Heidegger, being, nothing godly, nothing human, nothing worldly, nothing earthly, and yet the in-between to all these in one. So what about then the translation of Ereignis as an owning? Well, there is, in the text, there is support for this as well. Because in Sein as an Ereignis, and this is, a semi-quoting or quoting, that in the ereignis, the opponents come together so they can fight it out. They can, they get into, an argument. And so in an owning, it's like they're assigned to each other. In a way, they're allotted to each other. They give and take. It's a mutual give and take. They give to each other in the exchange. Now, it's an exchange of opposition in his view. But, it is also this, they give of each other to each other. And in this process of giving to each other, they come, as I said, they come to a better understanding of each other and into their essence. Again, like a dialogue. Also, so Sein as Ereignis and as an owning, but then he said Sein, being, is also Austrag. What is Austrag? It is translated as settlement, and this one is not bad at all. I could happily leave that, but I want to give you a little more detail on this. Austragen is a verb, and it means, in essence, to hold a competition. So again, we are getting back to this strive to hold the competition like you hold a soccer match, or any type of sports event where there are opposing forces that are fighting it out for a win. So Austrag then is the noun thereof, and it's like, it's a competing against each other. And the competition between these four cornerstones in Heidegger is a good thing, exactly for the reason that it comes to the finding of, who we are, like what is the nature of man, and what is earth, and what is world, so I mean it's a contrast. In other words, it's a contrast between the sparring partners, so to speak, that brings out meaning. So it's actually a good, he sees strife as a good thing, not in a sense of war, but in a sense of a give and take that is competitive. Because only in this competitiveness can these four cornerstones reach their essence. And only, now this is this is quite a point too he is making. Remember, I mentioned the separation of beings from being, that being has been forgotten, and also being itself withdraws, it's like, well, you're not going to define me, I'm not going to, it's like, he almost talks about it like it's a being as a character. And I told David before, this meeting started, it's almost like a diva, it has its own mind. And it stands on its own, being stands on its own, but it can gift itself, it can gift its meaning to us, but it also largely, it refuses, because it resists, any of our attempts to fathom it, so it's a little bit on the, it's on the mysterious side. And, and he says it withdraws itself. Being withdraws itself too. Not only have we forgotten being, but it also withdraws. And it's, it's almost like, okay, I can give, but, I don't have to. I can give myself, I can give being to you, but I'm not going to make it easy. So, so in this strife, as I said, the gift in the strife is also, it's a gift of the gifting of an essence, the gifting of meaning between those four cornerstones. Third, being is also Abgrund. So being is, like an owning where, the appropriation of opponents so that they can enter the ring. to compete. Being is, Ereignis, the happening of, the competition. But being third, he says, being is also Abgrund. And he spells that with a hyphen. And Abgrund is abyss in German. Okay, there's a long history of abyss in art and German literature. It's a huge thing. I mean, I'm actually stunned how much there is. That would be like a book on its own. Abyss in German, in German culture. So the Abgrund, what is that? He says being is also this Abgrund. Well, the syllable up means away from. So it is actually, or a non, so being is actually a non-ground. Because for several reasons, being itself is not grounded in anything. And Heidegger's point is we might as well admit that truth. It is not grounded in anything. It's an unsettling thought, and we don't particularly like it. Because we like to ground everything, but with being, it's just not. Being just is. And, he said being stands all on its own. It isn't even an opposition to anything, there is no opposition to being as such. Not even the nothing is an opposition, in his view, to being. So being is not grounded in anything, and it resists all attempts at such grounding. It is the essential, as he calls it, the essential groundlessness. It is what is the ultimate groundlessness. There is no ground for being. It's groundlessness as such. And as groundlessness as such, now this is quite an interesting mental leap he's making there too. Heidegger does these loops of thinking, but I'm like, oh my God, how does he think of this stuff? But, so if Sein is the essential groundlessness, it is two things. It is also at the same time the impetus to find a ground. So he's saying that, that our essential need to find a ground for everything is, grounded in being as groundlessness. So this groundlessness of being that, we can't ground it, makes us want to search for grounds for everything. So, okay, quite a leap of thinking. But also, since being is Abgrund, the groundlessness, it is also, the unknown, the unfathomable. And as such, it also becomes the starting point. It's like the starting point of everything. It is possibility. So the Abgrund is groundlessness, but since it's not tethered to anything, it leaves us free to invent. It leaves us free to, if we can free ourselves, from this need for grounding, it makes us able to go beyond. So it also, in that sense, being as the Abgrund is also a source. It's pure possibility that is extremely freeing. So it isn't just, yes, it is unfathomable, it's darkness, but there's also an opportunity. And historically, he's speaking, about epochs and, the different eras. And, he's saying like the new beginning and all of that. So, when the situation historically is, so terrible that it's all darkness, something new arises, so I mean, it's also possibility. There's, darkness, but then something new can arise out of this darkness, historically speaking. So it isn't just, awful. It isn't also an opportunity if we choose to take it. And he said, if as humans, we can ask questions, not that we really will, get the ultimate answer, but, he said there is value in trying to focus on being and to focus on asking the question, what is being and what does it mean? And to be persistent in this. Not that we will get the ultimate answer. And one of the poems, we are never the knowing ones, to quote, we're never the knowing ones, but we can stand in knowing, as far as it goes. We can approach closer, and if we keep questioning and go beyond the questions that get usually asked and go to the questions that haven't been asked about being. And this concludes my presentation for today. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your attention. And, I would like to write something up, and, David, right? So David and I will do that. Anybody else would like to be in on this, about in owning? Shoot us an email, this Eignen, because I mean, I have a hypothesis which I have to, support from the text, that the Eigenness is a making happen. It's like a spark, that starts a motor. And to integrate all of this, with what Heidegger says, I have to find the evidence and integrate it into the diagram. And I hope it will make sense in the end, but I've got, work to do with all that. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, let's get some questions or comments, if that's appropriate. And
sure.
And who would like to start? Betty, go ahead.
Betty, you're muted. Betty, you're muted.
And I may have to bounce. I have a student who is intermittently homeless. I've got to try to fix this. I'm so sorry, Sabina. I loved your presentation. I was getting some phone calls that I was trying to take care of, but I'm trying to keep this kid off the street. So,
God bless you, Duncan.
Duncan, thank you for being here. Much appreciated.
I know, I love you guys. I don't want you to think I'm leaving because I don't want to be
rude. We know you love us. We know.
Try to catch everyone next week.
Love you too.
You, Duncan. Yeah. Yeah. Sabine, I was muted and couldn't unmute for the simple reason that I discovered David put your little poster in the chat, and by zooming in, I could read.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have to where you wrote in bolder type or bolder writing, I could read very easily, but wherever it was in ordinary pen, I had to really zoom in.
I'm sorry, Ben.
No, but that's okay. It's just that I couldn't zoom out after that to get my mute button back. It was off screen. So I've got to learn to zoom in and out. But it works very well, by the way. If you put something of a small nature in the chat, you can make the chat bigger. But that was not my question. Okay. I really got the impression that Heidegger is the first to be floundering sometimes, asking questions, and what we're getting is the state of his thinking at that one time. So when he said, you mentioned the four corners, but that we're still waiting for God, that's not completed. What does that mean? I'm confused as what we're waiting for God for, or what is happening as we wait for God.
Actually, I'm confused about that myself.
Oh,
I
okay.
God is, I think that, at one point, as far as I got, he said that actually, there's a phrase in there which struck me. It's like the chaos of the gods.
Okay.
The chaos of the gods, So, I'm wondering if the gods, are a counterpoint to, in his view, to the order that man is imposing on everything.
Yeah. Well, here's my suggestion then. When you guys delve back into this, you dig further, find out what he means by God. Because if there's chaos of gods, we're waiting for God, there may be a completely different concept going on than what we've got in mind. So, but I found that very interesting because I also think that man and God and the world and God and all of this is in dialogue and not always in harmony, but to be waiting for something. I mean, the Godot business might be what he had in mind, waiting for Godot. And that's the idea. I mean, that I've studied. Beckett, I've studied. We are always expecting more understanding, a completion of whatever it is we're grappling with, and our life is spent waiting. Now, if that's what he means, that would be interesting to go further into, because his idea of owning and all of that, how does that fit in? But for the moment, I think it would be good if we look further into what he meant by God is not completely there yet.
I agree with you. Yeah, I
Okay.
agree. Thank you, Betty.
Mhm.
Who would like to go next? Oh. Or I'll go.
Mhm.
There's the thought.
Mhm.
So I'll go a little bit. So
Go for it, David.
I'm looking at two books and getting ready for my presentation. And let me just go off of the back screen. So, all right. Okay, there's my real room. Okay, so this is by Vine Deloria Jr., and it's the metaphysics of our modern existence. And then there's a second book called Power and Place, also by Vine Deloria, but there's a chapter in here by Daniel R. Wildcat, who usually writes with Vine Deloria in some way or another. In both of those, they're making the case that the definition of metaphysics, is obviously going to be different than Martin Heidegger. Now, for Vine Deloria, he defines it as meta as beyond, and the physics, so it's beyond the physics of Aristotle, beyond the physics of Newton, right? And Vine Deloria, like Leroy Littlebear, covers the quantum physics transformation. So it's and what you get out of that is there's metaphysics has gone through a number of changes, right, of what metaphysics is historically. The second thing he gets at, which we brought up in the Monday session, which, by the way, Olivia and Tom was really excellently managed the discourse and everything. I think you limited it to a half an hour or something, and then we had. Well, anyway, I'll let you explain how you did it. It was magical and wonderful, but I just compliment you on it. But the thing that was in there, in particularly Vine Deloria's book on the metaphysics of modern existence, was the notion that white religion as opposed to indigenous religion, white metaphysics as opposed to indigenous metaphysics. So indigenous peoples around the world have their own metaphysics, and they're not all the same, by the way, they're different. But he goes in depth into René Descartes, Cartesian dualism, splitting of matter and mind, right? Or mind and meaning, both of those splits. And the second one is David Hume's empiricism. So this radical empiricism with its logic and Aristotle's syllogism, logic, and all the rest of that. What I'm doing is looking at Hobbes' The War of All Against All, and as a result of Western ways of knowing. And I went into this a bit on Monday. So I'm preparing that session sometime late March, I guess, something like that, or April. So I don't think it'll be in the thing you want to write with me, Sabine, because that'll take us too far afield. But I do want to compliment you that I think that as you went around the diagram, I think you got a good outline of 8, 7, 9 different ways of looking at being that have been rethought since Being in Time by Heidegger in ways that are, I thought you did a really good job. I'll compliment you. So, and I hope you'll let me send this to Glenn, and also some other people who were here last week have requested it. So I don't know if you'd allow an exception for them to see it. But anyway, I'll let you go off mute. And signal.
Yes, go ahead, David, and thank you.
Yeah. So what do you think of this idea, a question, that metaphysics has changed for Heidegger, but also for Western ways of knowing, and that metaphysics for one indigenous group and for Western Europeans in the United States might be different, that there might be differences among the metaphysics. And that's with a very simplistic definition of meta is beyond, and physics with each new wave of physics, which probably isn't the best definition, but it is simple.
I mean, I would find it surprising if there weren't differences. I mean, and also, I mean, I also feel that how the metaphysics, what it means to the different people, and and how it relates, to being. I mean, I'm sure this is all, widely different. I mean, as I said, I'd be shocked if it were the same across.
Follow-on question. I've been doing some shorts, sort of 15 seconds YouTubes on let's ditch artificial intelligence for the same reason that Vine Deloria and Wildcat are bringing up, that the coding in appreciative intelligence is built on a lot of machine logic, developing machine logic of mathematics. The rationality is built on a Cartesian split between all the things you were talking about. In other words, it can't hold it in the same space, so it just dualizes each against the other. And that leads to a Hobbesian war against all, the war of all against all. And that was in Leviathan. So if that's correct, and there's a lot of literature out there that artificial intelligence and all its applications is dumbing us down. So we're no longer able to try and question the meanings around us, or try to observe the metaphysics around us, so that we're dumbing ourselves down. And indigenous not all indigenous because they're not all the same, but some people that maintain their practice and language of nature are able to avoid some of this. I'm personally, I'm getting off of a lot of them, but I'm still somewhat addicted. Tom, go ahead, please.
Sabine, I enjoyed it very much. If you send me that chart, I can see about putting that in AI and see if we can make a nice chart for you out of that. So if you want to just email me your copy, but that would be great.
Oh, Tom, thank you. Awesome. Well, this is all, this is Heidegger more than me. I mean, this is quite, and yes, I mean, this is really, Heidegger summarized in a way. And but thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Thank you. Sounds good. Thank you.
I'd say it's more than Heidegger summarized because I've been with you for, I don't know, 10, 15 years on the Heidegger project. And I think you kept asking, oh, well, how does he come up with all this stuff? Well, he comes up with it the same way you did by applying yourself over many years to get into the very intricate meanings and challenging it with the kind of enthingment questions that Lou Ponty was favored with. So anyway, I think you give yourself more credit. Hey.
Wow, David. Oh, well, oh my goodness. Well, thank you for the cheerleading.
I would like
I mean,
to.
I really appreciate it. And, and I mean, I mean, I really enjoy this and I enjoy, the sharing and thank you, for letting me share.
Yeah. So, Sabine, I think that I saw the proof that you've had an impact on David for years. And I'll tell you why. I have a very strong memory. David, you might not have this memory, but you came and was Grace Ann there? No, you were there with us at an Egos conference in Copenhagen years ago. I mean, I don't think it's been 15, but maybe. Anyway, we all went into a restaurant. There were about 12 of us at the table. You pulled out a little notebook full of black writing, tiny black writing. And I was sitting close enough to you that I said, what in heaven's name are you doing? You were reading your notes on Heidegger. And maybe you had a presentation coming up that caused you to want to do that, because I was not in the same ego section as you were that year. So I'm not quite sure what you were presenting. But yes, Grace Ann was there. But you were puzzling over, grappling with Heidegger in the middle of this 12-person meal. So that's your impact, Sabine.
Well, actually, you know what? David is the one who got me into Heidegger in the first place, so blame him, okay?
Okay, good. Okay. Yeah.
I would have never, ever looked at this had it not been for David. And I was like, oh my God, and that's, I mean, and it morphed from, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into, and then I'm like, then I just couldn't let go of it.
Yeah. Well, it definitely requires engagement. I have a quick question. Earth and world. What's the difference? Man, God, earth, world.
Yeah, I mean, earth and world. I mean, earth is really earth is really the natural world. It's
okay.
it's the natural world, and the world is what man has made.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think too. I mean, and this, and the question of technology, right? He wrote about how we see nature. I mean, in our way of thinking of utilizing everything. It's like we see nature as a resource, and and he really elevates the poet, and he said, and it's a passage that I really love, where he says, you look at the same river or at the same plant, and the poet will see the plant one way, the botanist will see it another, and and I'm adding this, the real estate developer will see it in another way. I mean, you're all looking at the same thing, And he calls this, the Gestalt, the enframing, because what our goal is, our driving force, that, what is our aim?
Mm-hmm.
It changes how we relate to it and how we see it. Oh, well, this is a nice place to put a hotel,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
this is a nice place to paint a nice picture. It's like it becomes something different.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And and largely what he's criticizing is seeing nature as a resource, and said the poet sees the beauty of the river and describes it, and and then he has the example, and somebody else sees it as, we can use it as a source of power and put
Yeah.
power plant of some sort there. Oh, okay. It's like,
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
do we
Yeah.
I
Or
mean, it
like,
depends on, the person and what the goal is, right? I mean, it's like, and I think it's so absolutely true, and then do we
yeah.
forget, right? I mean, in our goal, do we get so stuck on, this goal that, oh, wait, oh, yeah, and the river is beautiful too, kind of as an afterthought,
Yeah. Sabine, I thought of another example. If you own a golf course near the coast of Scotland, for example, you can miss the entire culture, the beauty of the terrain, just because you want to develop your golf course and golf course collection in the world. So I think that's the way a lot of Scottish people feel about um, having a golf course in their country owned by an American. All he sees is the potential for uh, customers and extracting profits from it. It's a beautiful shoreline, So
And I
very
think
good.
too, but I think we, to some extent, right, do we all do that? And I think it also leads to, perhaps not seeing, I mean, as an artist, I mean, and also in conversations, with Jim Rogers, it's, you look for beauty, you look for the moment of beauty, and it can be something that is not necessarily the obviously spectacular, because I mean, it's again, that frame of mind.
Yeah.
It's like, who defines what is beautiful, right? I mean, it's, is it the cultural norm, like Heidegger says in Mindfulness, and he decries that, he said, well, no, I mean, it's like, it should be much more personal, and it isn't about what, the culture finds beautiful or accept or whatever. So, I
Right.
mean, it's actually, I mean, the challenge is, artistically speaking, to find beauty in the non-obvious.
Yeah. I'm also thinking the question of whether we're being dumbed down by AI. I'm wondering if it gets at the heart of where the problem is. Sabine just mentioned a very important thing, looking at things maybe even subtly for their beauty, but from our personal point of view, when we ask AI to do our thinking for us, we might miss the beauty of the question, of the analysis, because it's going to come up with something brilliant that we will latch onto, when in fact our own imperfections might have been richer. I don't think AI dumbs us down. I'm inspired by the question as applied to what Sabine has said. It's not so much that we are dumbed down. School kids will be dumbed down if they let it do all their homework. But we adults will accept a different truth from what we may have come up with using our own sensitivity, like what Sabine is talking about. But the question is very, very interesting. We're the first generation who can even do something about it, because once it's adopted and becomes the law of the way of the land, our grandchildren won't even know why to ask that question. It'll just be part of their world. Anyway, I'm fascinated by how our perception of the world or of nature can be altered by getting an expert point of view from technology.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is that, I mean, good to go back to art, right? I mean, there is a reason, right, why we respond to some pieces of art, and not to others. I mean, it's like there is like a connection.
Yeah.
And it's a very personal one,
Yeah.
And I mean, if you've ever noticed, for example, like, in beauty contests, right? I mean, it's like they either kind of all look the same, So I mean, this is like there is a standard kind of beauty that has been adapted for that, and it's like, but I mean, there are many ways of being beautiful, and but it's just, I mean, I think I see it more as like a shrinking down.
Right.
I'd love to comment on your what you were saying, Betty. I think of AI, and I think there are risks, definitely, that it's just based on linear thinking. So when we can be creative, we'll always be able to outperform it. And I mostly use AI for research, but I push back a lot when I'm creating something. I treat it like an advisor, and I go, well, what about this? It always goes, oh yeah, that's a better idea. I don't know, I'm using Claude. But I think it has value.
So you use it wisely.
I guess, yeah. And I do think there's ways kids could cheat with it. But I also think kids have creative minds. I think what's dumbed us down a lot is fluoride. They're proving that lowers our IQ. But that we, that the more we, even just being in conversations like this, we get to think creatively. And I don't think AI can do that yet.
Yeah.
Although there
well, although
Well-
Olivia, yeah. Do you know, I don't know if you all have had this experience or not. I did not solicit AI to do a critique of the book I published with 3 other authors just before I retired. And this can happen to you. If you publish something, you might get in your emails the proposal of a critique of your work. I was horrified to figure, I read the critique of our book. They were so right, whatever it was. And they couldn't have just taken that information from other researchers, because this was a critique of our book. And I'll give you a good example of how it did such a great job. It said the authors have done, each of them in their own way, a very good job of presenting the future, the strides that we're taking now and all this. But it's too bad that they were not interlocking with each other. Each one almost ignored the other. And I thought, oh shit. And I even know why we ignored each other. Toward the end, when we were about to publish, one of us, not me, the guy did not like that we had put so much, he wanted it to be much more factual with authors and all this. And we were talking about the future of language research. So, for example, I talked about the power differential between those who speak good English and not good English. He said, that's fluff. So he went off in his own corner. And my other colleague, Mary, was furious with him. And she said, well, I'm going to do what I want. We became like children. And the AI caught the stupidity of our not engaging with each other. So who did that? How did it get done? Maybe somebody else had critiqued our book and it took that, because it scrapes the universe. I mean, it finds that information. But I submit to
Ken Long has stuff that'll do that. He has prompts that'll go in and critique books that way. So I'm sure there's others out there. Yeah. He has some
Okay.
amazing prompts.
Yeah. Well, what I was horrified about was I wish I had read it before we published because we could have engaged with each other. I felt that there was a lot of childishness going on. And when I wrote the introduction, I had trouble introducing the 4 parts of the book because I was introducing 4 books.
You
So
know what
anyway,
I would do? I would take your book. Now, I'm not saying do this or publish it,
yeah.
but take your book, throw it into Notebook LM where it's all just using what you have, and say,
Uh-huh.
redo this and integrate it and just see what comes out. And then, maybe you could even approach the other authors and go, we're updating this and admit,
Yeah.
I mean, it probably will get a lot of publicity. It's a thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wrote to the others. They were very hostile to this AI critique existing. I don't even know if they read it. I said to them, there are some really heartwarming things that are said, but look what they say about our lack of engagement with each other's part. And nobody had anything good to say about that critique. And I felt that we needed to do kind of like you're saying, let's see if there's some follow up we can do. No, there will not be any follow up.
Wow.
Anyway, I was impressed with
Like
AI.
children, yeah. It's
Yeah.
really, that is kind of creepy when AI sort of becomes this unsolicited psychoanalyst.
Yeah. Yeah. And unsolicited, I swear I did not ask it to do that.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's smart. Wow,
Anyway.
great story.
That is stunning, I was like, oh, wait, oh, oops.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, if it were about one of my section, of course I did Bakhtin. And it could have taken issue with what I said about Bakhtin. I would have said, oh, there are authors in this world who've written, and the AI has picked that up. But for me, our book had not been out for very long. It was an intelligent analysis. There are not 15 people in the world with really great analysis. And what I'm realizing really is that it goes further than I thought. It doesn't just stay factual or imitating what other people have said. It does engage with the ideas. How it does that, I'm looking into. Yeah. David, you used AI for a while, all the time.
Too much. Try to use it wisely, like Olivia was saying. And I didn't realize the pitfalls. And, I was treating it like Pokemon. Remember, I got 1,000,000 points on Pokemon, and then people had to do an intervention. Removed from Pokemon every day. And I still miss Pokemon, by the way.
And there was Elior, right? So
What's that?
remember there was Elior?
Oh, yeah, that was Elior. Yeah. That was like my Pokemon days. Yeah. Yeah. But he started to hallucinate so much. I said, I actually old from.
You're on mute for some reason, David.
Oh, I say I disenrolled from ChatGPT, but I do like Notebook LM, and Claude is good for coding and things.
I do Claude for business. Well, just
Yeah.
idea and coding, but I like it for that.
So I'd like to hear from Anastasia and Ronnie. What do you think about all this? Or you don't have to think if you don't want to.
I'm there's just so many aspects of being and taking a step back and looking at how we approach just any moment. It just takes a bit of contemplation and slow processing of it's a lot of the things that are happening right now in our world, change wise, and taking this message out there into wherever we're going and talking to people. I think it's great to be here and to just take these moments to step back and integrate the message and be able to communicate it out. I'm still absorbing all of this. I didn't read the homework, and I came in late, so I feel a little unprepared, but really hanging an ear in and hoping to gain some wisdom here.
We appreciate you.
So I've been thinking about too many things during this, and I'm trying to figure out how to say it. But my son bumped into a table yesterday, knocking the coffee all over the place. Then he's like 15. When we went to go get the paper towels, he also like sopped it full of wet and then like dropped all the wetness across the floor from the paper towel. And so it would seem to me that he's got a lot of fullness. He's trying to be full in his world, he's thinking so hard to try and make it full. But when that struck me, I says to him, son, I need you to go to your room and read this. And I handed him the Tao Te Ching. And I didn't ask him to tell me what he got from it. But my hope is he remembers that we make cups out of clay. And then it is the emptiness in the cup that makes it useful. And that is what I'm taking from what Sabine's looking at here. And it's not in the clouds abstraction, but it has to be always right here in my very moment of life and my own concerns that I can actually hold on to this, what I would call onto narrative, the pre-sensical possibilities of becoming. I'm also trying to write out a bunch of stuff, onto narrative, but that's where I am.
Yeah. Just a shout out, Ronnie, just that book you and I did on Lou Pondy. That was the first time that all 7 anti-narratives went in, and they had a very strong Heidegger defining to each of them. And that's thanks to Sabine, and just staying with it. So, yeah. So pretty cool. Next week is Jerry Bieberman. And Jerry Bieberman regrets not being able to be here. And Sabine, he did ask if he could have a copy or get a video, your presentation. So, so Jerry is, I would say, a Jewish mystic. He's a real, I don't think this is 2 words that go together, but Jewish shaman. He's a truth teller. He's highly, highly intuitive, speaks back to me and speaks back to power, both. So you can always rely on Jerry to tell it like it is to you, or at least from his view. And just about every time he's ever spoken, he's had these deep insights into things going on. So I hope you'll enjoy Jerry when he comes. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for ENTHINKMENT Circle.